Hi everyone, welcome to episode 6 of the No BS Pagan podcast. I'm Fiona Edgar. This is my lovely co-host Tina Kemp. So we're going to be talking about a variety of things today. It's Samhain. Samhain is coming up shortly. We're going to talk about some psychic protection work for the home and some other things. How are you doing, Tina?
Great. Motherhood is quite exhausting sometimes, but it's lovely. I can't complain about anything at all, and I won't.
Good. That's great. Great to hear. Well, we might as well start with the fact that we have Samhain coming up. Now, the correct astrological time for this, it's 3 full moons before Yule. And actually, this year it falls on October 28th, and it's the same day of a partial lunar eclipse that we have in Taurus with the sun in Scorpio, so it's a full moon lunar eclipse. Now, it's really a big deal, and this is a great time for you to do your ancestral work because an eclipse can help you release a lot of ancestral trauma, ancestral karma, and so on. So traditionally, it was a time when the veils were said to be thin. So the veil between our world and the realm of the dead, and they were said to be able to come into our reality, and people would lay a table of food for them, talk about them, honor them, raise a glass to them. And that's what I'm going to be doing. What about you, Tina?
I am going to be doing pretty much the same. Yeah, leaving food out for them, probably food that I made. I just set aside a portion for them because also I cook for my family, and all my love and my care for my family goes in there. So that's why I pick that particular food, whatever it is I'm making that day, to set aside, usually near the fireplace somewhere. Another thing that I've noticed that happens to me every year is around this time of year, I get a bit melancholy about my own past. And I've come to the point that I just let it happen. I don't fight it anymore. If I need to cry, I'll go have a cry. And I just don't repress any of it. So if you feel that way around this time, which is actually quite normal, the sunlight is dimming, seasonal affective disorder, to put a name on it, it's all normal. Just let that happen and don't repress it, because in the end it won't do you any favors trying to repress all of that. It's also good, you get to know yourself in your worst moments, and usually around the time that the winter starts, that's a good time to do that sort of introspective work.
Yeah, and of course it falls within this, the cycle of the seasons. During this time of the year, we kind of let go of things and we shed our skins. The vegetation in the natural world is starting to die. Scorpio season, is all about death, and that kicks in towards the end of the month. So it's the perfect time for some reflection, and that should be a bit dark. Because if you're just thinking about happy stuff all the time and glossing over any of the negative things, you're not really working through your stuff properly.
It's a form of mania. If you're happy all the time, you can't maintain that. And if you do try to maintain it, at some point there's going to be a crash, and you're going to crash so hard, much harder than you need to.
Yeah, I agree. It's time to be realistic and get to the bottom of things. So that's what I'm going to be doing. It's the same as you. I'm going to be cooking foods, and for my ancestors, relatives, some of whom I do know their names, but most of them I don't. I don't know who they are. I know where they came from, but that's about it. So what I do is, and we don't really know exactly how things used to be done because a lot of that knowledge has been lost. So we have to kind of try and piece it together. And one thing that I do is I always honor Odin on this day as well, because Odin is a god of the dead. And I ask him to be present. I give him offerings Then I give the ancestors offerings, and I just speak to them and I say, you know, I'm sorry that you suffered so much. I'm sorry that your lives were, you know, full of hardship and trauma. And if you know about some ancestral things that went on, that might be affecting your line to this day, it's worth mentioning that. And then I ask Odin, you know, please make sure that the fragments of trauma that these ancestors left behind, you know, because they were given the incorrect burial rites, they haven't been acknowledged since they died, because we're probably the first ones in many generations to actually keep this going. And I just say, can you please take any trauma and, you know, take these people to the right realm? Because a lot of people, like we discussed in a, you know, previous podcast, they don't get the right death rites. And I really think that that's something missing in terms of the stuff that we go through today. So yeah, a lot of my clients ask, when should I do this? Well, October 28th, it's an eclipse. It's perfect for the intense releasing of these ancestral traumas that you've been carrying around. And then you should treat it like you would a normal ritual. So cast a circle, cleanse the space that you're going to be doing the ritual in first. You know, you can use a bell or some smoke or, you know, something like that. Cast your circle, do your ritual, and then close it, you know, and give the spirits license to depart at, you know, before you like open your circle again. And really, it should be intuitive. If I give you a long checklist of things, you're going to be, you know, it's going to be very stiff, and go with what you think is right.
I feel this about those a lot of rituals that are pre-prescribed. The checklist is so long, and you're more focused on not following a single step that your focus is off. You're not going to be focused on your ritual or the intent of the ritual. You're more focused on following the right steps, and that's a wrong way of going at it. So it's better to go with your intuition.
Yeah.
Another thing I would like to touch upon is, don't use salt to cast your circle, because salt is a banishing, banishes. It's used for banishing. You don't want to use that if you're going to do a ritual, because it neutralizes all the energy that you're putting into your ritual.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. When I cast a circle, I just use my finger and I visualize a energy stream coming through my finger, and I draw a circle. For some reason, my circle is always the color blue. But like you said, it's best not to overthink. Don't get books and print offs on the internet, you know, do it from your heart. And even if you do some ritual bloopers, we all do those from time to time, trust me. Or the cat walks in the middle of it, or, you know, your husband comes home in the middle. It's okay. Just keep going.
If you are one of those people that needs something physical to cast a circle, it's a bit elaborate to get it, but egg powder. So the powder that you make of eggshells is actually a very protective substance. So if you're going to use something to cast a circle, something physical, use ashes from your fireplace and mix it with eggshells. It's very effective.
That's a good idea. Very good idea. So we can move on then to methods that we can use to keep our homes a sacred space and free of any intrusive entities. So what kind of stuff do you do then to keep, you have a lovely energy in your home. Every time we talk here, I can notice that it feels warm and inviting, and there's nothing hanging around. So what do you do exactly to keep it that way?
Ghosts in this house. I will start with that. They definitely are ghosts in this house. Because every time I get upset at something and I get loud and I get upset, I get loud because I'm upset, one of the doors in this very room starts opening and creaking. I never get a bad vibe from it. It's more as if the house is telling me to chill out. So I've just come to accept it as one of its quirks. But one thing I do, and especially during this time, because here we have the Tramontana, which is a particular wind. It's called the black wind and the suicide wind, because it does drive people absolutely crazy, because it is very strong. It is cold and icy. It may be perfectly normal Italian temperature outside, but once the mountain wind comes, it is so vile, and you feel that it gives you a headache, it drives you insane, it makes you very anxious and antsy, and it howls through the house. If I don't close doors, or if I don't close them enough, you hear the howl of that wind through the house, and it also howls through the chimney. And also in the folklore here, that black wind is the bad spirits ride on it. So if you hear it howling through the chimney, you need to put something on there to keep them away, so they pass over your house. That is what that thing there is. It's sort of alarm system, if you will. It's just something I made, a stick with bones, and if that starts making a sound, I know that the black wind is coming through the chimney. And that's when I start to put not sage, bay leaf, which grows very abundantly here. I burn some of it around the house, which is something important actually for the people that like smudging, and I do that, and I use it a lot. You don't have to use sage or white sage that is imported from the Americas. Go with something local. There are plants in your area that used to be used for that, like fern that grows almost everywhere. Bay leaf is extremely effective for that, especially if you wrap it in some mint that also grows in the wild. Very good for it, and it smells really nice as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I do smudge sometimes, you know, to kind of lift the energy, but most of the time I don't, because I'm too I'm too lazy. But yeah, it is important to kind of keep that your home sacred. Now, where I live in a small kind of cul-de-sac in rural Ireland, and you know there's a couple of neighbours here and on the other side, but my neighbour was telling me that he's just next door, that both he and his wife were kind of pinned to the sofa on different occasions by an entity, and there definitely it was something, or there's something on this land. Now, no houses had been built here to my knowledge, so I'm not sure what it is. They don't bother me. But when I went on vacation, you know, I was in Denmark for a couple of months. I think that was last year, the year before. And someone else was looking after my house, and he said that he felt something sitting on his legs at night. Now, they don't dare do that with me. They know better than to mess around. And also my cat keeps them away as well. But there is that sense that you do always have to make sure that they know you mean business. This is your home. They have no business coming in here and messing around. Like you, I do have a couple of housewives, you know, that hang around, and they're mostly they don't cause me trouble, you know, they don't make any mischief. But actually, the same as you, if I'm angry, or you know there's been an argument or something, I can hear noise. And one of the things that happens is the light switch in my bathroom suddenly slams against the shower. So they don't like you know, they don't like arguing people or noise or whatever. But I do also do the algae ritual, you know, where you draw it. I've spoken about that before, and visualize the rune, one on each side of your home, and then join them up with a white line. But most of all, I think you need to make sure that it's as if you had a big dog at home, you know, a big dominant dog. You have to show that dog who's boss. Because if you don't, then it's going to test you over and over again. The spirit world is a lot like that. So you have to let them know you're the alpha. And if they come around, then you're going to hurt them. And to be honest, having that attitude, it keeps about 90% of them away.
Yes. There are shamanic rituals that still exist in Siberia that are absolutely brutal. And they are brutal for that reason, because you have to let, if you go to do those sort of rituals, you're going to attract a lot of spirit attention. And you need to let those spirits know up front that you mean business, and that you are absolutely not fucking around, and that you will hurt them. And you have to stick to that. Like, never be afraid of these things. It can be scary, yeah, but it never starts off scary, because that is the moment that you need to assert dominance, as it were, before it gets to that point, because you've already lost the battle. If you're afraid, it's not a good thing. Stop being afraid as soon as possible. And if something scary does happen, one of the best things you can do is just say very firmly out loud to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And mean it. It works.
Yeah.
A lot of times. And if it
does.
doesn't work, there are ways to make it very uncomfortable for that entity to stick around.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things that I do is I have a Thor's hammer above my front door and above my back door. Now, they're not actual Thor's hammers, they're just printouts, you know, of a card with the image on, but it still works. And another thing that I get 4 local stones, you know, 4 stones from the earth. Doesn't have to be anything fancy like rose quartz, just regular stones, and charge them. Put your energy into it and say, you know, because that stone also has a spirit, and just say, can you please protect and guard my home? Put the 4 stones in the 4 corners, and that also is extremely effective.
You really feel that you're having an entity that is persistent and you're past the point of asserting dominance already. Like the people that sat on the couch and they felt it sit on them, or pins to the couch, on those places where it tends to happen, put salt under there. That will maybe not make it go away entirely, but will definitely help. It weakens it. So that's a good thing to do if you are suffering from those kind of things. Also put it under your bed.
Yeah.
One thing that I do when I first came in here was, when I first moved into this house, was something that Thomas, that I actually got from Thomas, is to throw salt all over the house and then swipe it up and then dispose of it. And that is also a good thing to do after you do a ritual. If you want to get rid of all the energies, just throw salt everywhere in your house and then swipe it up and dispose of it. It will clean up all the leftover energy that you don't necessarily want hanging around after a ritual.
Yeah.
Or the attention that it that it attracts.
Yeah, that's a good tip for sure, because salt clears and it also purifies. So taking salt baths, using it to clean the energy out of your home, it's really effective for that. So yeah, that's great. Now we can move on then. So I just came back from Greece, and I cannot even describe how much I loved it and how much of it was really a profound spiritual experience for me. Now, I knew that I was going to love Greece because it's the birthplace of Western astrology. So I automatically had a tie to it. And there is a astrological technique called astrocartography. And basically, the simplified version is that an astrologer can overlay your birth chart with a map of the world, and you'll have these planetary lines going through. And my sun line goes right through Athens, which is where we were. So, of course, the sun is positive, it's about creation, your soul, past lives, the father. And so when we got there, one of the first things that we did was go to Apollo's temple in Delphi, and we hired a car. It took about 2.5 hours to drive there. Some of the roads were terrifying. They were like cliff top roads with no barrier, and I was terrified. My partner took it in a stride. It didn't bother him. But we finally got to the temple, and the energy is still really active to this day. But we were climbing the steep kind of hill up to the temple, and I was exhausted. It was like, I think it was like 35 degrees that day, sweating and, you know, drinking water. So I decided to take a little rest on a wall, and I was sitting there drinking my water. I struck up a conversation with this guy that sat down beside me. He was an older guy, and he had a kind of Viking look to him, you know, that kind of white beard, and you know, he had kind of tattoos, and he looked kind of. But anyway, it turns out that he was in the British Army, and he had a lot of scars on his legs. And he told me he had metal like pins in his leg, or you know, something like that. But he had been in the army during the conflict in Northern Ireland. So anyone that follows me knows that that really affected my childhood, because my dad was in the military, and we just had such a profound connection. And for me to meet this guy who had been almost blown up, you know, by a bomb in Northern Ireland, his scars on his legs, my invisible scars on the inside, it just felt like such a magical moment. And we both were a bit stunned by it. And of course, my sun line running through Greece, you know, the sun is the father, your experiences with your father, and all of that, you know, the war and the terrorism, of course, was you know, because of my dad's job. But I felt like it healed something going to that temple. And I brought my little statue of Apollo with me. And probably, I'm sure lots of other pagans have done this, but you know, I made offerings to Apollo in his own temple, and it was so magical. So definitely, I encourage people, especially pagans, to check out your astrocartography and travel to your moon line or your sun line, and you'll get some really cool spiritual stuff. We went to Zeus, the temple of Zeus, made offerings, and then the next day there was a huge thunder and lightning storm. So that was also cool. But what do you think? Do you think that when you go to certain places in the world that there's some kind of past life stuff that kicks in, or ancestral?
First time I was in Rome, I was 18 or 19 years old, and it was a mandatory school trip. And I knew my way around in the city center. I knew where everything was. Well, I didn't know where everything was, but we had to go certain places, and we had to prove we had been there by taking notes and filling out the test and whatever. And I instinctively went to every place on pure instinct, on intuition, and I found everything I needed to find. I had never been in Rome. I never read about Rome in a way that is any way significant, more than, oh yeah, we're going there. And I knew I'd been there in a past life. I absolutely knew that. I probably was not a Roman per se, because I have no real affinity with that culture. Well, no, I do. I have a soft spot for it, but I don't feel the ancestral connection to be really there. I might have been one of those Gauls that came to Rome with Caesar. That is possible. Thinking about that, by the way, that is very funny, because I am mostly Gaul, with Viking in between. And yeah, I crossed the Rubicon with a Roman to live here tax-free. Well, first house, you don't pay taxes on it in Italy, making sons for the Roman army. And I have a son here. After years of trying in Belgium, I have one here. So that irony is not lost on me at all, which I often joke about. But I have seen places around here that I, not in Rome, but around this area in particular, which is the megalithic area of Italy. I have been to places here that were so uplifting and so beautiful, and I was so tired when I finally arrived there that I felt energized, and they were beautiful, and the energy there made it beautiful. It was just a forest at the end of the day, no more beautiful or particularly striking than any other forest, but it was the energy there, and you felt it, you could feel it. It was good to be there. And yeah, I do think that these particular places, that people did some sort of worship there. And it's a very, very big shame that in Italy, all these places, all these megalithic places are called necropoli, which even though never any body was found there ever. So where do they get that from? I don't know. We can speculate about that. I suspect sinister reasons behind that. But yeah, I've also been to places here that had the exact opposite effect on me. Like an actual necropoli. I went to there and you could feel it, that there are demons in this place. And I'm not even going to try and do anything. I'm just going to pass through and not make any kind of spectacle of myself. And I came back with an eye infection from that place. A really bad one that wouldn't go away at all. It was a horrible place. There's not bodies left there anymore, but there were crypts, Etruscan crypts everywhere. And there was no sound. You could hear no birds, but you could hear insects. A lot of insects, mosquitoes and flies, and not even crickets. Not the chirp chirp, which is kind of a happy sound, but just the flies and the mosquitoes. And it was a bad place. I would never bring my son there, especially on this age.
Yeah, I've been to places like that too, where the energy is really bad. And, you know, especially in Ireland as well, they've tried to do that. You know, they always call the megaliths like tombs. And to me, they're portals. They're, you know, they're energetic portals. But yeah, in Greece, you know, because they still all of the, you know, a lot of the place names are from the gods. They haven't tried to make the temples connecting to Christianity in any way, and it has such a lovely energy. You know, there was one point where I was sitting on the beach, cats everywhere. It's a cat lover's paradise. And they were all quite well looked after because the people love them, you know, they love cats. And we were sitting there eating fish on the beach, and there were two swans that flew past, and they were quite low and really close to us. And I just thought, well, I said to my partner, are we in the afterlife? Have we died and we're in the afterlife? Because this is just too perfect. And I know being on vacation, you will, you know, you'll feel really good, but I've traveled a lot. I've been to many places in the world, and almost none of them have had the same impact as Greece had on me. And I too feel a past life connection because astrology has always been in my blood, and I can't explain it. And I've never, you know, I never had a teacher. I haven't even read that many books. I just knew it. Of course, I had to teach myself to read the chart, but I just knew some things and missing pieces. The only way that I can explain that is through past lives, because none of my ancestors, well, recent ones that I know of, were into astrology. It's just me and my older sister who is mildly interested but not obsessed. So I think that going to these places can act as, you know, it can provoke some kind of healing within ourselves and reconnect some missing pieces of the puzzle in terms of the own histories of our souls.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. When I was talking about a megalithic place, I was in a bad headspace the first time I went there. Well, when I first came here, I really had some moments where I thought, like, what the hell did I do? What kind of mistake did I make, Tina? You left behind a whole life, a career, friends, family. You came here with a couple of clothes, basically, with clothes, a cat, and a guitar that you barely ever play on. What the hell did I do? And yeah, I reconnected with the man that I am now with, who I have my son with, and it set in motion so much good things to just be there and be open to it and experience this feeling of, yeah, this is good that I'm here right now. This is meant, maybe not meant to be, but healing. Yeah, you heal from it. So yeah, I absolutely believe that some places have that energy, but you need to be open to it. You absolutely need to be open to it, or at least need to want it, need to want to heal, because if you don't, then what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I had quite a good experience the first time that I went to the Hill of Tara here in Ireland. And that was where, the kings were initiated, a very, special, famous place. But I went along with, an ex, wasn't really expecting anything. At that stage, I was still kind of a new ager, this is many years ago. But we were walking along the Hill of Tara. We parked our car. We were on the grass, and I honestly had the weirdest experience. I felt like I was walking into an energy field. I could feel this buzzing, and then I started to cry. And I am not a person that cries easily. I never let people see me cry, but the emotion was from some other place. And I cried and it felt like some kind of release, but I've never visited a place since then or before then that had that effect on me, and I still can't really explain it.
I guess that's why it's so powerful, because it's not everywhere. You need to seek out those places, because you won't find them in the middle of the city, or even here in my village. They're not that kind of places here with that power. It's a lovely place to live at, but no, there's not that. In fear of sounding like a new ager myself, these sacred places where there is this sacred divine energy hanging around that has been maintained through the centuries, because even now today pagans still exist. Even if a Christian church has been built on these places, people still go there with that idea in mind that they are holy places. So it's maintained in its own way. Even some churches can have that effect on you too. But I know it can be a controversial thing to bring up in pagan circles, and I understand completely where that comes from. But in the end of the day, it is just about the energy that hangs in a place.
Yeah, I agree. They used to build the churches on top of the temples. So, but yeah, we still have holy wells here in Ireland. People will go to them. But of course, they were pagan before they became Christian. But nearly everything in Ireland, they've tried to connect it to, St. Patrick this and Mother Mary that. But if you go back, it was always sacred before Christianity took over. So it's worth going to those places.
The same thing here, though, like every town around here, even the bigger cities, have their own patron deity. Of course, they're called the Madonna of, which is the Virgin Mary of, but they're not the Virgin Marys, are they? We all know that they're not. These are the pagan deities of that place that have been rebranded in order to not make an enemy of the church.
Yeah.
Because why else would they have a Madonna of the lake, a Madonna of the oak tree, a Madonna of the Nespoli tree, which is my town's Madonna, by the way. My town has its own deity. The town next to us has its own deity. There are nature spirits, the genius Loki, that are just bound to this place for whatever reason. And people found that out, figured that out, and have maintained that worship in their own way. And I think that is beautiful, even if it's been sanitized through a Christian lens.
Yeah, well, that reminds me. You heard about that tree in England that was cut down.
Yeah.
So what do you make of that?
My first instinct was maybe a bit bigoted, maybe, because I immediately heard in my head some particular phrase that is often associated with a specific religion that is not native and starts with A and ends with Akbar.
Yeah.
But I don't think that is actually the case in retrospect, because I looked at the pictures after the tree was felled, and it's been done professionally, even with a line to make it a straight cut. these people don't have too much experience in felling trees, if you know what I mean. The desert. So I don't know. I think that is done. That is, if it's done as a prank, as a troll, a real life troll, that is a long way to go. But I do think it's done with an intent behind it that has spiritual connotations to it. Another person that I know on Facebook posted something that she saw when she was in a park in London about a guy climbing a tree and being very mad at the tree, tearing at its leaves and its branches and cursing at the tree. And she went over there, she stared at the person, and he climbed down, and he was rather psychotic in his response, saying something like, "I'm in tune with nature." And she said nothing and kept staring at him, and eventually he just went away. And that is just bizarre behavior, no matter how you look at it. And yeah, she related that back to the sycamore tree near Hadrian's Wall. And I can't entirely disagree with her that there seems to be some war going on the European wilderness, or at least the sacred trees. But it's always been the case whenever Europe was colonized by foreign religions in the past. The sacred groves that were, well, felled.
Yeah.
Even the Romans did that at some point, even though they were pagan. There were places where the Romans just said, "Fuck it, I'm going to destroy everything."
Yeah. Yeah. We even had a sacred grove in Dublin, you know, for Thor. They were all over, but this happened on the same date that white stag was spotted. Remember, there was a stag in the street, and it was pure white, and they fucking killed it. And, you know, terrible omens. But England, well, all of the British Isles, you know, it's fallen. We have fallen. And it's not surprising that these things are happening. There's like a spiritual psychosis infecting a lot of people at the moment. And it's like a demonic type of psychosis. So I read that comment that that person made as well. That doesn't surprise me. But on the other hand, there is also, or there are also a lot of people returning to their ancestral faiths. So it works both ways.
Also, that fight is entirely in vain. Your fight against nature. Nature is so incredibly strong. I live in a part of Italy that is very, very wild. The farmers here have a saying, "L'orto vuole uomo morte," meaning the field wants the man dead. You have a constant battle against nature that is trying to encroach upon your field. And it does kill you in the end, because you fight so hard, and in the end, nature always wins. It is so strong here. You have to go through little forest roads here in summer, and when there has been a few days of rain, nature just encroaches upon that street. It can get quite dangerous if you're driving with a car, because, well, the road seems smaller and there are these bends also. But yeah, it's a constant battle. Nature always wins. Don't try to fight it.
Yeah, it does. And that's why they were never able to make the gods disappear, you know, because they're forces of nature.
I also believe that gods that are specific to a certain culture have to do with the weather. That's why in Greece, you will not have gods that have to do with snow or with the cold. And in the same way that, yeah, I mean, they're weather specific because they are forces of nature in the end. You can believe in gods as personifications of those nature forces. That's the way I see it, at least. And they're indestructible.
Yeah.
You can ignore them at best.
Yeah, I agree completely. So we can talk now about our ideas. So Tina and I were having a chat, and we decided that we're going to start a mystery school, and we can teach you everything that we know. And we're going to be teaching the runes, Northern shamanism, and some other things.
Yep, I know that there have been people that have been waiting for me to finally start the classes that I've been talking about that are about runes. And I never got to it. I just never had the time to sit down and think about how I'm going to do this. But now that we can combine efforts, that is a great motivation for me to actually start doing that. I think it's a great idea, and I look so forward to it. And I will teach everything I know about runes in that course.
Great.
Or in those meetings.
Yeah, I also am looking forward to it. So it's going to be an initiatory mystery school, and you will have to be up to the job, because this comes with a risk. All spiritual development, especially when it's authentic, comes with a risk. You know, you open yourself more to attacks. You have to be a moral person. So you will have to take an oath for this mystery school to practice it in a way that is, you know, with honor. And we will definitely keep you updated as we kind of go over the fine details of that. But hopefully, you know, it should be ready to launch early in the year, next year, and we'll keep you updated. So let's talk about the astrology, and then you can do your runes. So
I would like to say quickly about the mystery schools. If you're a love and light person, don't bother. It's not gonna be for you. You're not gonna like it. You're gonna want your money back, and we're not gonna want to give it back.
No. You just stay away. It's not, you know, it's not Abrahamic, it's not New Age. It's going to be authentic, raw, real, and, you know, blood, sweat, and tears. So stay away if you cannot handle those kind of things. But we definitely will have a chat with people that want to join before, you know, before we open it, and just have an open meeting on Skype or Zoom, and people can ask us some questions. So yeah, we'll keep everyone updated. So let's talk about the astrology. It is a little bit wonky this month because we have got a bit of an eclipse happening. In fact, we have a solar eclipse, then we also have a lunar eclipse. Now, one thing I wanted to mention is that Thomas Sheridan and some other people, myself included, have been seeing snakes everywhere. Some people that live in countries have been seeing actual snakes. There's been a bunch of stuff in the media about snakes showing up in bizarre places like Dublin. Like a girl found a snake in her bed and all kinds of stuff. But why is that? Well, actually, if you recall, Venus retrograde, we are still in the shadow for another couple of days. But Venus went retrograde on this fixed star called Alphard, and it was in the Hydra, which is the water snake constellation. And this is a star that's connected to poisons, toxicity, you know, venom. So that's one reason why I think people are seeing snakes everywhere, dreaming about snakes. I, for one, started to have dreams about snakes as soon as we had Venus retrograde. And actually, if you dream about snakes, it can also be your ancestors trying to communicate with you. But this star is connected to like toxic behavior, self-poisoning from drugs, you know, illegal drugs and legal drugs, foods, toxic information. So Mother Hydra was said to be, well, the mother of everything that is evil. And Ptolemy said that this star was like Saturn and Venus. It gives knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of human nature, but it is connected to the bad stuff. Now, you need to have esoteric knowledge to get the most out of this star and understand the wisdom. Venus will be in that constellation until about October 15th. So if you've had any snake dreams or interactions with snakes, do let us know. So the rest of the astrology for the month, Venus enters Virgo on October 9th. She is actually in the fall in Virgo. Venus is about how we feel about ourselves, self-confidence, self-worth, and of course, love and money. It can make us more self-critical, hesitant, and a bit fearful and maybe anxious over those things, but it can also help us to be more devoted and selfless. Virgo is an incredibly devoted sign to their partners. So Mars enters Scorpio on October 12th, and Mars is at home here. This is one of the signs that he rules, and this is the planet of aggression, your sex life, your physical energy. And in his home sign, he becomes very powerful, like Darth Vader. I know that Tina has Mars in Scorpio, and actually it's a great place for it. So don't mess with anyone while Mars is in Scorpio, especially not Tina, as she already has Mars there, and she will do some kind of mind tricks on you. But yeah, it's a great transit. Now it can make us feel more vengeful because, well, revenge is kind of normal. Wanting to feel that or experience that when someone wrongs you, it's normal to want that. It's only because of Christianity and the New Age that we are told to let it go. And then, you know, if someone has wronged you, you're supposed to suffer all over again and feel like a bad person because, you know, you want revenge. I'm not saying go and do anything stupid, but ignore all of that fluffy nonsense. So then we have the eclipse in Libra. It's a solar eclipse. This is happening on October 14th. It's 21 degrees of tropical Libra. This is like a new moon on steroids. Where we have an eclipse, the part of the chart that it falls into, we have big life changes that unfold over several months. Marriages, birth, death, new jobs, you know, it can be anything like that. Now, this eclipse, it's only 3 degrees away from Ketu, the tail of the dragon. And this eclipse promotes intense releasing of ancestral karma. And this is prep for the lunar eclipse that we have on the 28th, where you can do your ancestral work. So these two are working in harmony with each other. But basically, because this eclipse, the sun is in detriment in Libra, it can massively affect people that are in positions of power. But relationships, art, aesthetics, beauty, those will all be themes as well. Now, during an eclipse, the Hindu community believes that there's like a cosmic disturbance. And some things that they observe, which probably we should all be doing during an eclipse, you can do some things to kind of minimize the negative effect of the energy and make the most out of it. Fasting. Now, if you're able, if your health is up to it, fasting is a good idea. Food is said to turn into poison in your body during an eclipse. Now, why is that? Well, scientifically, it's probably because your emotions are much more heightened and your stomach cannot digest the food properly. But fasting is good. It's also a good thing to do when you're trying to release something, releasing ancestral karma. You know, fasting is great for that. Mantra. So the Hindus will say mantras on the day of the eclipse. And even if you're not a Hindu, we can also do that. So this eclipse is ruled by Venus, because Venus rules Libra. So therefore, you can use a mantra that is connected to a deity such as Freya, Venus, Lakshmi, whatever tradition that you are in. I will be saying, you know, using a mantra or Galder connected to Freya. You can also use a Venus talisman. Now, the eclipse is conjunct a fixed star called Spica, and you probably have heard of that. You know, it's a magnificent star. It's connected to good fortune, good luck, and success. People that have this star in their horoscopes are destined for really great things as long as they only reap what they have sown. So as long as they don't try to steal things from others, take the credit for other people's work, because if they do that, they will experience a downfall. We are all influenced by the star here during this eclipse. So great success can come of this, depending on where it falls in your chart. You'll have to check that, but be honorable. So then just the rest of the astrology, we have Mercury entering Scorpio on the 22nd and the Sun entering Scorpio on the 23rd. And this is when we start to move through the underworld. This season is connected with death, because this is the time when animals would have been killed to make way for to make food for the long winter ahead. It's skin shedding. So stuff can get a bit dark, like Tina was saying earlier. You know, your emotions can feel darker at this time, but acknowledge them. Don't try to suppress or ignore them. The veil is thinner, and this is why this lunar eclipse on the 28th of October, partial lunar eclipse in Taurus with the Sun in Scorpio, perfect for releasing your ancestral trauma and doing ancestral work. So that's the astrology. Excited to hear what the runes say.
I pulled it while you were at the first part of the astrology, while you're talking about the Hydra. Ether.
Oh,
Frozen water. So very apropos for the Hydra part. But frozen water is motionless. So if you feel carried away with your emotions and you indeed want to go out on a limb to get back at somebody, temper that. It is one of the elements that created the world, together with fire. Ice and fire created the world in the conscious void of Ginnungagap. So it is a prima materia, a primordial force, and it is both creative in its own way and highly destructive in its own way as well. It's because they were both those things, fire and ice, coming together in that sense, that they created an alchemical reaction that created everything. But this is the stillness, the non-motion concept aspect of it all. So yeah, if you feel your emotions rise very high to the point of boiling over, just don't. Take a step back. You know, when you get that angry that you really want to get revenge on something, don't get mad, get even. Revenge is a dish best served cold, as the saying goes. It is a rune that is very extremely introspective. It's the most introspective rune of it all. A lot of people think that it is a very negative rune if it falls in a reading. That is not true. It just serves as a warning that is not as kind as some of the other warnings you would get. This is a warning of stop. So yeah, stop yourself from boiling over. Stop yourself from being rash. Stop yourself from being too impulsive. It's not a good time for it. And I think that that is all I should be saying about that room.
that was great. And that's such good advice about Isa. You know, if you feel yourself boiling and you can't think clearly, one thing that you can do is just energetically draw Isa on your forehead. I do that with a lot of the runes actually. But yeah, that's great for stop being nuts, you know. Stop being crazy. Isa will kind of freeze those emotions within you, and that's extremely powerful. So, well, I think that's us finished now. So Thanks for joining us. If you want a rune reading, chat to Tina. If you want a mythology-based astrology reading, chat to me, and we will see you next time.